Welcome to another segment of Random Character Generator. I am Greg Tito, and I get to roll up some fun, interesting characters with Brandy Camel. Hi, Brandy.
Hey, Greg. How are you today?
Very excited. This is the fun segment where we press the button on D&D Beyond for a third level character randomly generated. We get all of our stats, all of our decisions made for us, and then we try to come up with a good story, well, quote unquote, good, workable storyline for this character that you can use for inspiration or perhaps as an NPC or player character if you're crazy in your D&D campaign. So let's get going with our third level character. What do you think, Brandy?
I think we should do it.
All right. We've got Bolin. One word name.
Mm-hmm.
Changeling Sorcerer.
All right. Oh man, these are some fun stats to play with.
They really are. Wow. So we got a 15 strength, 15 dexterity. Good so far.
Yep.
Constitution 5. Wow.
Whew.
-3 modifier on that. Not very smart. -1 intelligence modifier with a 9. Average wisdom with a 10. And I thank the gods for at least a pretty high charisma with a 17.
The charisma's there. The charisma is bringing the power here with Bolin.
Yeah.
But man,
and so Changeling is for those of you who don't know, what book did that come from? Now I'm blanking.
Oh gosh, is that a Xanathar's thing? It's been around a while, hasn't it?
It has. I'll look that up while you continue to look for more fun stuff.
But yeah, I think this is real interesting, right? Especially I always get really fascinated by characters who have an extremely high strength, but a really low con, because it's one of the things that you kind of struggle with wrapping your mind around.
Right.
Often those two stats usually are high, or at least, relatively in tandem. And, for me, when I come across a character that's like this and I'm trying to suss it out, I feel like the easiest reasoning for a low constitution is that low stamina kind of character, right? It's somebody who can do 2 or 3 power lifts, but doesn't run a marathon.
Right. I always think of Raistlin from the Dragonlance series of novels because they were, very typically a very high intelligence wizard, could do everything, but had a very low constitution score, maybe even a 4, if I'm remembering correctly, and was always coughing and unhealthy. And that was like the big weakness. Like they were the most powerful wizard in the world, but they, a cough could lay them out.
Yeah, I mean, there's also just kind of the entertaining notion here of someone who, maybe just struggles with asthma, but is absolutely ripped otherwise.
Right. So the high strength, that's what makes it very strange.
That's the thing that makes it really strange, is a high strength and high dex. So like physically they have this prime body that can do a lot of physical activity, but probably just not for very long.
Right. And I like that as the interpretation of these stats for sure. So changelings are from Eberron, rising from the last war, and are able to change up their appearance at will, essentially.
Yeah, changelings are really interesting. Just the whole shape changer idea of stuff. And honestly, maybe you could feed that into these sort of unusual stats, right? Is that they've sculpted their body as such to be this impressive, strong, dexterous body, but it takes a lot out of them to do it.
Oh, actually, I kind of like that, right? Like that's so much of their energy, physical and or otherwise, is wrapped up in changing their form. That's a really kind of cool idea. The thing that gets me right now is they're a third level character
with 8 hit points.
8 hit points. Which is
A
Lower
stiff
than most
breeze.
first level characters.
Yeah. Beware the stiff breezes.
Yeah,
Bolin.
having a -3 modifier on each
That's
level
brutal.
means that that's rough. Oosh. All right, so looking at some of their skills, they're skilled in athletics.
This is really just feeding into my narrative, by the way. I've already got a story coming. Wait till we get to it.
Trained in deception, which is good for the high charisma. So they have a +5 modifier there. They can intimidate and persuade people very well. As well, they know how to survive in the wilderness. I could play into this as well.
Okay.
Because they're a sorcerer and they are the
see what their bloodline
dragon.
is.
I think I saw that somewhere. They were the dragon lineage feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, Draconic Bloodline is their
Draconic
sorcerer's
Bloodline,
origin. Yep. All right, so in Silver Dragon is their ancestor. That's interesting to think about.
All right. So like the goodly dragon.
Right, yeah. And they're an outlander as their background. So that means they are not from wherever they currently reside, right? So I definitely see them as being an outsider, and because of their survival training, they're okay with being able to live on the land when not in a city. This one says they're an outlander from Baldur's Gate, but we can weave that in if we care for. So maybe they're currently in Baldur's Gate as a changeling, but have spent a significant amount of time outside the city.
Okay. All right. So hang with me here. I'm thinking this is a charlatan bodybuilder.
Oh, kind of like a snake oil salesman for enhancement.
Yeah, I mean, so you've got this person who's got deception. You've got this person who has intimidate, who has persuasion. They have all the right social skills. Who haven't taken a look at the spells yet. It seems like they have some more combat oriented stuff just at a glance.
Yeah, so their at-wills are light prestidigitation, so 2 utility cantrips, which is not always great for a sorcerer, to be honest. But infestation is a new one for me.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that one.
It is a conjuration cantrip.
Okay, that's
and it allows you to cause a cloud of mites, fleas, and other parasites to appear momentarily on one creature. So it's kind of like a jar of bees that you're throwing at your enemies, which will cause poison damage if they fail their con save. Okay, so interesting. It's a conjuration cantrip. You don't see too many of those.
Yeah.
Contrip. You have to say it like that. It's conjuration.
It's a contrip.
And as well, they've got Chaos Bolt and Jump and Enlarge Reduce person. Wow.
Clearly for themselves for this whole bodybuilding aspect, right? Like
yeah. Well, and the pyrotechnics might fit with your charlatan type of idea, with having fireworks go off.
Prestidigitation too. Like I feel like this could actually very well be a performer style character with that surprisingly impressive athletics and surprisingly impressive persuasion. I could see this as someone who is, weaving stories on a stage, or I don't know why I got so attached to this bodybuilding idea, this idea of somebody who really has sculpted their body but can't do anything like long term with it. Like they're not going to fight a battle for like a barbarian might, but that first punch will probably hurt.
Yeah, if they can land it. They do have a few meta magic abilities here. They have subtle spell and heightened spell. Okay.
Well, subtle spell also plays into that whole charlatan concept of doing things on the down low and getting these spells off before other people can notice.
Yeah. So that just basically means they can use some of their sorcery points to cast anything without anyone knowing it, without any somatic or vocal components. That's interesting.
This would be a fantastic sideshow in the Witchlight Carnival.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at the heightened spell there, especially with the spell that makes
Infestation, yeah.
infestation, right? So if you're able to use your heightened spell for 3 sorcery points, you'd be able to get people to fail their saves that much easier, as well as the enlarge or reduce, because I feel like that could be something that's used in a carnival setting as well.
Definitely.
Chaos Bolt is probably the standard offensive spell that they use over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's a good standby, right? Like that's something that you can kind of rely on, but it does have that also, chaotic element to it.
Right. You don't know which type of damage you're going to do. It might be something that your foe is immune to. There's certainly that possibility. And then jump. I never pick jump. I always want to pick jump as a spell, and I never do. And so it's interesting that it's here, and again, could be used in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really loving this idea now of weaving them in as like a carnival side act, or like go see the strongman Bolin, and
Yeah. I'm looking at Draconic Resilience, so their max HP actually increased by 3. So they actually had a hit point total of
5
5
at level 3.
Wow. Which I mean, it's possible, right? Even if you do standard, hit points to start, and then rolled 1 or 2 and get -3 on each one of those rolls, at least you always have 1. So,
Yep.
Dang, it's some really poor rolling as well as low con. That it means that they are an actual glass cannon here.
I do think that that's a really great way to represent this character, right? Like the concept of the glass cannon caster is, I mean, like you said, Raceland's a perfect example.
Right.
That's a very common trope for your caster types. So I think that works. But I love the idea of this twist that it's somebody who is presenting themselves as something they're not.
Especially by being a changeling too. Like that's so interesting. So we've got all these parts. So let me just kind of summarize and let me see where we could weave in any more storytelling here. So the Bolin, and we don't have a gender here for Bolin. So what would you think they are?
Oh gosh. I mean, so I actually think that this would work really well as a non-binary person.
I do too.
Especially as a changeling. I think it's really common for changelings to want to be fluid and to go between the genders as they so choose. So I think this is someone who would actually work well in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they were either an orphan or grew up not knowing about themselves and who they are, really, and had to fend for themselves. I mean, that's where the survival comes in. That's where the outsider comes in, because they find themselves in a large city. Let's say it's Baldur's Gate. And they try to carve a life for themselves from the abilities that they have to change their appearance. At least the strength and dexterity kind of plays into being a showman, as well as the high charisma. So that allows them to be well liked within their communities. I think that's part of the background here, is that they have some friends within the immigrant community. So they basically, the non-humans of Baldur's Gate embraced Bolin, or at least the show that Bolin puts out. And then do you find them as a loner, or do you think that they've joined some type of a carnival or circus, as you were saying with the Witchlight Carnival?
I do really like the idea of this being someone who's joined a troupe. And maybe they do have that kind of level of insecurity where they don't build long-term relationships with people, but they like is making connections with as many people as possible, even if it's really only on the surface.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes much more sense if they've found their family, for lack of a repeating a cliche there. Their found family is this group of, maybe they're not all charlatans, but at least they all pay attention to how to perform and entertain the rest of the larger Baldur's Gate community. I love that they know the tantan, which is I had to look it up. It's a tambourine-like instrument.
Oh, excellent.
As
Please just randomly pile on more reasons to make this a carnival person.
yeah. Right. I could just definitely see them being able to, when they're not, a bigger part of the show, just accompanying on the rhythm tan going on. We also meant, their Silver Dragon heritage means that they speak Draconic, Elvish, Zemnian as well, which gives them more credence to performing in a circus type thing.
Yep, for sure.
What do you think they look like, other than, what is their chosen form more often than not?
More often than not. Well, I think I had mentioned before, I imagine this is someone who probably has a very sculpted body. I'm thinking either very Cirque du Soleil-esque, where it's someone who has good muscle definition, probably keeps themselves able to be to move around easily, but really has some muscle underneath that.
But then, how do they dress themselves? Are they shirtless all the time?
Is this a shirtless individual? That's a great question. I'm wondering if they're really presenting themselves as like the strong man or strong person kind of part of the act. Then they're probably dressed in either something that's either very form fitting, or at least shows off the parts of their body that they're most proud of, whether that's like arms or impressive quads or abs or whatever the case may be.
Interesting. What if, and I'm just throwing this out there, what if in their resting form, they're nothing like that? Like, what if in their resting form, they're actually quite slight or maybe even an animal or something that isn't what you might think of as something that would be strong or give that forth. But as soon as they're on, they are this muscled individual who is all about showmanship. But that's only 1 hour a day, or 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that they have this like strong, confident form that they use when they're in the middle of their performance. And then like the moment the show's over, it's just like, they develop a slouch and they put on a fluffy robe, and it's just like, I'm almost imagining going like complete opposites. Like imagine like almost Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilder style while on stage. And the moment that they leave the stage, they're like little old cat lady with a cigarette and bunny slippers just walking off. That would be amazing to have that.
Right. It's like seeing a professional wrestler or type of look. And then when they're off stage, it's Liberace. Smoking a cigarette by the piano.
Perfect. Tapping their tan.
I love it. Yeah, with the tan. Keeping the time there. All right. Well, what do they sound like in those two forms? How do they?
It really is two different voices, right? This is the kind of character who'd really like have. Maybe that's why they learned Zemnian was for their other, because Zemnian in Exandria is compared a lot of the times to German. So maybe they have kind of like this big hulking German accent while they're in their, performance style. And when they're off stage, it's just, I'm imagining like almost the Roz from Monsters, Inc. kind of, I'm just going to chill. I'm done with my show, honey. You come back the next day.
We're closed.
We're closed.
Right. I love that. It feeds into the kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of look, right? If he's like this Austrian accented bodybuilder in one situation than the other. All right, that's perfect. Sweet. Well, let's summarize Bolin here, and we start with them living on their own. They might have some silver dragon heritage, but basically had to fend for themselves. They were able to eat by using their survival skills, but grew up somewhat lonely until they wandered into a city, perhaps like Baldur's Gate, that's full of scum and villainy, and found a family in a carnival or group of circus performers that allowed them to be themselves when they chose to, and then they could change their form into the strong, boisterous, strong man performer, and perhaps convince you to part with some of your gold pieces in doing so. They are a sorcerer, so they're able to cast magic, and they use most of that magic to help the show. There is a lot of utility magic in their small spell list, including light and prestidigitation, maybe even shocking grasp is useful in the show. If there's a audience member who's getting unruly, maybe the infestation comes into play there, and they're able to get them to move out. But because of the meta magic, they cast these spells somewhat invisibly and are mostly able to deceive people into realizing that Bolin is not the origin of this magic. When they get into trouble, maybe they do use a chaos bolt here and there if necessary, but otherwise, jump is used to good effect, and large or reduce can be used on any number of fun creatures to be a part of the show, and the pyrotechnics, well, that goes without saying.
Absolutely.
When they're performing, they change themselves into a form that looks very muscular, extremely strong. Their low constitution means that that's only 1 hour a day. If that, they soon get exhausted and revert to their true form, which talks like Roz from Monsters, Inc. Does that sound about right?
That's perfect, honey. You nailed it.
And they love all of their found family who perform in this thing, and is happy to support their efforts, as well as keeping rhythm with the Tan in the off when they're not on stage.
I love this character.
I do
This
too.
character's delightful. I kind of want to play this character, not going to lie. It sounds like a lot of fun.
I am a big fan of the big swings in the stats, and then having to come up with the reasons for why those are so. High dex, high charisma, low con, and low intelligence is just a real fun character, especially for a sorcerer like this. So maybe you happen upon a performance by Bolin in your travels. If you would like to check out this character, we'll have a link in the show notes where you can access it in D&D Beyond. I think you have to sign in to be able to look at that. But I, as always, love coming up with this character from random stats with you, Brandy. It was super fun.
This is always a blast, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, we'll be back next week. Bye.